Hello. Well, we've been threatening to do it for probably the best part of 2 or 3 years, but James Barge and I have finally sat down with a cup of coffee to record what is going to be lovingly known as the Cup of Coffee Conversation, or Cup of Coffee Convo for short, where in the space of 5 minutes we're going to aim to tackle a subject a week from the world of sport. This week we're going for the Ashes, which is obviously quite a loaded subject, so I'm going to let Jimmy dive straight in there, and I'll follow from what he says.
Well, obviously, I wrote something on Pete's iPad just to guide our conversation. I can't really say that if we want this to be broadcast.
What the fudge just happened?
Or what the hell just happened?
Yeah, can we get away with that?
And with the Ashes, I mean, I think many gentlemen around the country and ladies will be asking themselves that question on Sunday, waking up, seeing Alistair Cook nearly in tears, apologising to the English fans, saying he's let us down and things like that. And I guess we actually do just need to kind of work out what just happened there.
I think, it's just been a nightmare. I mean, I try and stay positive in life, and I think the positives probably have been the emergence of Stokes, who has played with a bit of character, obviously got a century and has got a few wickets. And you look at potentially what Broad did in the first test, but you're starting to struggle from then on. I mean, obviously, there was the unfortunate situation with Jonathan Trott, which was awful, and I think, you've kind of got to separate from what happened. But I think it's just been a disaster from day one. I think the team selection for me was poor. I think the fact you're not taking Onions, which is your top wicket taker in county cricket, is something I'd point out straight away.
It's a good point. I listen to Darren Gough quite a lot. I think he seems to know his stuff.
Yeah, talks.
And he does kind of talk about Onions a lot. But we had 3 tall bowlers out there, and this has been said by tons of people. But you take a person like Chris Tremlett over there. I know he's 33, but at the same time, you've taken him to Australia. You've played him in one game. He's got a few wickets. Why does that automatically mean that you should drop him for who is essentially a medium-pace plodder, if we're honest?
What did you think about this sort of the argument? Because it was something I was thinking on the way home today. This argument of, well, players like Rankin and Tremlett and Finn didn't play well in tour matches, therefore they didn't merit selection. What did you think to that?
I guess it's that old argument of, especially in football, I guess, is if someone trains well, does that mean that they're automatically going to play well, and vice versa, really? And I know that a net session is obviously going to be different to a tour match, but I think if you're going to take these guys, especially Finn, who, to be fair to the lad, has done extremely well in the last few years, and I don't really know why he's been ignored completely.
I think the argument with Finn is that he takes wickets, but he's costly. But to be honest, our problem was taking wickets.
And I guess that's Cook's motto, isn't it? He wants to be conservative, wants to keep runs down. My one really is just this persistence with Bresnan. I know that people say that he brings a good kind of attitude with the bat, but just look at the scores that he got, and I think that's proved kind of my interpretation right anyway.
I also don't think he was fit.
Is he ever fit?
It's a fair point, but I think that there's almost... I mean, this leads on to another point. I think you make a fair point with Bresnan, and I'm a fan of him, but I completely see what you're saying. I think there was almost an arrogance to England from the off. I mean, you look at the selection of Bresnan, who had recovered from an operation, hadn't played much this summer, yet we selected him, and I don't think a lot of thought went into the selection. I mean, I like Carberry. I think you've got to have a lot of respect for the way he's come back from sort of, the personal issues he's had as a Hampshire fan. Unbelievable player. But should he really have been picked? Should we have dropped Root? Why not play Compton?
Well, I looked last night because I was thinking about this, and I was looking at the top run scorers for England in the tour. Mm. And you've got KP at the top, who I'm actually quite surprised about, but still...
Yeah, that's surprising.
Still, he's number 1.
Yep.
And number 2 is actually Michael Carberry, because he's got a couple of 40s and he's actually been quite consistent. Because he didn't get a ton, does that mean that he's therefore had a failed tour? Probably yes, and he's probably going to be dropped for it, but then you've got to look at people like My big one is Bairstow, and I really can't understand him in the England squad at all. He might be considered to be a good player, but his batting is shocking. Actually, in all,
he's no better than Pryor. He didn't add any. He didn't justify replacing Pryor because he didn't add anything. He wasn't bad with the gloves, but you're in there as the wicket keeper to do two things. One's keep wicket, and the other one is bat.
Yeah.
And wicket keepers traditionally are the ones that will score you quick 50s, but trying to keep to this time limit that we're setting ourselves, and we'll move on to the final thing where you haven't used an expletive, which is where next for England. I think, it's almost a shame that we've now got this one-day series and the inevitable 2020s that now come with modern-day cricket, but I think it's getting through that and then preparing this summer for Sri Lanka and India, which are going to be two big tests. We blew India away the last time they were over here, but India are a changed team now. I think we've got to start looking at the future, and for me, you've now got to be looking at the youngsters like Stokes, like Finn, Broad, and building them around a team of experience, maybe like Bell and Pryor. I still think should be in there. And I suppose the big question is firstly, should Cook keep the captaincy?
I think that's one of those really difficult ones where you would probably say yes, but only because there isn't anyone better than him to take it on. A few people I've heard have said Bell, no, but he's
not got the mentality for it, I don't think.
And he bottled it again at number 3. A few people have said Pryor, but he's not even in the team at the moment. We've obviously had KP, who's had a go. Unless you go completely rogue and you go completely young, I guess the only other candidate would be Stuart Broad, and he's the only player that actually warrants it at the moment. But this is kind of a bit stereotypical. This is probably going to come back to bite me. How many good bowlers have been good captains?
Not many.
So therefore,
the last player was Flintoff.
Well, there you go. But was he a good captain?
Not really. No, he didn't. He wasn't the right man. So I think that's a fair point. I think to conclude, England, the team now, there are an awful lot of players who are going to be here for the next 5-10 years, and I think an awful lot of them now are going to be judged, particularly the likes of Cook, who have got a few years more than perhaps Pryor and Bell, but they're going to be judged on how they respond to this, because the easiest thing in the world is to come away licking your wounds and feeling sorry for yourself. But I think professional sports people have got to be coming out and looking at it, thinking what went wrong, because no one seems to be saying anything tangible about what went wrong. You listen to Gooch, he's saying the preparation was good, the training was good, they weren't doing anything particularly different to what they've done in the past where they've had success. I don't know about you, Jim, I've not heard one solid reason why it went wrong other than Australia were better than us, which I know is the bleedingly obvious, but there's got to be more to it than that when you look at this team on paper.
Well, we're in a society where people write reports, people evaluate their performance. I think a lot of people who probably spent quite a lot of money going to Australia would like to see some kind of explanation from the England team, particularly Flower, as to why why it happened. But just to finish off, I would be really concerned about this summer, because I can actually see us. I can see us beating India. I can see us beating Sri Lanka. But would that actually solve anything? Would that actually get us any closer to being a force against South Africa, even against Australia? It really does hurt me to say that, but yeah, that's the kind of the be all and end of it, really. We need to have a team this summer who actually are going to go forward in the future,
compete,
and actually we want to be able to see the likes of players who are like the Vernon Philanders and the Dale Steins for future years to come, not just see someone who's going to slot in for a little bit and then we're going to drop him because he's not good enough.
Yeah, I agree. Well, on that note, we aimed for 5 minutes. I think we're now verging on 10 minutes, but as it's the first go we've had, I don't think that's too bad. Maybe we'll look at it and think 10 minutes is a more accurate way of doing it. Obviously, a big subject like that. I think what we're going to do next week, I've just typed something frantically in front of Jim, is we're going to look at football managers and how much time they're given in the game, and some opinions on that. So all that's left to say is, hope you enjoyed it. To the 5 or 6 people who will listen, if you've managed to get this far, thanks very much, and we'll chat to you next week.
Yeah.